MRI accident that happened in New York, where the gentleman was his wife was getting an MRI, and he was allowed into the MRI scanner room, and unfortunately, a major accident happened. So after 20 plus years of being in this field, I have not seen personally anything of this magnitude happen before, at least recently. The oldest example was back in the 80s at a children's hospital where an oxygen cylinder went inside of the MRI tank. And that is one of the scariest things that happens. So most hospitals use, especially children's hospitals, after that incident, they use oxygen tanks that are non-ferris. So they're not going to be attracted to the MRI unit. I've worked at one or two adult hospitals that they differentiate between the ferrous and non-ferrous oxygen tanks. So the non-ferrous ones have an orange top on it. So that allows us to be able to know these are the only ones that are allowed because you do need oxygen inside of the rooms. But this can pose a problem because there's a huge magnet that's always on in the MRI unit. So this gentleman was allowed in the room. The other thing that I saw on the video, I don't know if you guys have seen the video that's been leaked again. I'm not showing the video because I don't know that the video is authentic. It could be something that is manufactured. You know, now with AI, I'm not putting anything up that I cannot verify is accurate. And one of the things that I would say from the video that I saw was number one, it was a mobile MRI unit. The first safety issue that happened was allowing family members, non-patients to be in the mobile unit. It's such a small space anyway. All you have in a mobile unit, imagine a fifth wheel RV. Not a lot of room unless you're living in it, but you're not living in an MRI mobile unit. So all you have room is to come up the steps or up the lift, and you're immediately in the area that is either the changing room for the patient or it's the area where the technologist works. And then you have a door that separates the MRI scanner, which is housed in a itty bitty little portion of this mobile trailer. And that's where the patient is. That's where the scanner is. You barely have room for a stretcher or a wheelchair. And this is never safe for anyone to come back into a mobile area, especially, but especially anywhere where you're in that zone, which is either in the MRI suite or the zone right outside the MRI suite. Normally, I do not bring patients back. I never allow patients' families, excuse me, I don't bring patients' families back. I 20 plus years, I do not allow it. Some technologists do, some facilities do, but this is what happens when you do allow people who are not getting the exam in areas that they can just walk in. And once they walk in or bring something in, it's too late. There was a walker in that video in there. I don't allow anything except MRI safe items to go. So we have things that can go inside of the MRI unit where the scanner is actually in, which is an MRI safe wheelchair. A MRI, we're talking about MRI safety. The MRI accident that just happened in New York, the video has come out, and the video is showing that the technologist knowingly allowed the woman's husband in there to help her up. Now, I've got two things if this video is authentic, which I do not know. That's why you won't see it on my page. I cannot verify that this is the actual incident. And I don't think it's a point to really show the video. Let it work out litigation in the court system, which is probably where it's headed to. Unfortunately, someone lost their life because if this video is true, the technologist allowed a patient in the area back there and then allowed a patient in the room. Number one, we have so many ways that a patient can get up off the scanner without the help of the family members. We don't necessarily need family members to help them to get up. It's a small table, but family can get up on their own. But you run a risk when you let people in there to help them up. So the husband came in. He evidently had a weighted metal chain, necklace, whatever you want to call it, across his body. And you saw in the video, it immediately snatched him in. So some people say, how did he get in the room and didn't get snatched immediately too? So what you see on TV is not true. The MR unit is strong, but usually you can get into the room and get a little close to that scanner depending on what it is you have on, how much metal is being attracted to the MRI unit. So that's why he was able to get as close as he was to that magnet. The only problem is some technologists know this and they actually allow people to come a little close and move wheelchairs. And as you saw, there was a walker in there. So they allow people to actually come a little closer. They kind of know the area of how close you can get before the machine will snatch something up. But don't play with stuff like that. You just don't play with this. So I personally, again, do not let anyone but the patients back there, because once the door is open, and when I go in, I close the door. That way, nobody can walk in or push anything in behind me, because I have had incidents working with new technologists, other technologists who are a little careless, and students, and had a wheelchair, almost a Ferris metal wheelchair pushed in, and I was between the wheelchair and the machine. It would have gotten snatched, and I would have been pinned in between. So these are the things that you have to be careful of when working around a huge magnet like an MRI. This type of accident can happen and will happen. It doesn't matter how trained someone is. What matters, in my opinion, you can make all the documents and all the MRI safety books you want, but if people who work in the field and people that own these centers follow protocols, do not follow protocols and follow safety protocols, it's going to keep happening. And unfortunately, people are going to lose their life. So my thing is for patients to understand that when you get an MRI, if they ask you to change, change. If they ask you to fill out a form and disclose what metal you have in your body, be honest about it. I've had people not want to tell me they had certain implants because they were embarrassed. And they tell me once they get on the scanner. No, I need you to tell me before you go in the room. This is all for safety. Because once you're in there, we can't do anything about it to get you out. You see, he could not pull that man out. You cannot. And I have been in situations where I have had things pinned to an MRI scanner, not a person, but things. And I'm going to tell you, it took every ounce of strength with me and another technologist to get it off of the scanner. But I understood the physics of where the strongest and the weakest part was on that magnet, but it took a lot of strength and a lot of time to get it off. And you do not want a person attached to that scanner. And imagine a weighted belt going across and it just pulling into his body. The pressure that was happening, the magnet was trying to get that weighted belt on him off. It was just attracted to that metal. So that's what was crushing into his chest. You can't just slide it off your head. You can't pull it. It's in there and it's across his body and it's just pushing. Where your heart is there, all your vessels. It's just a terrible thing if that video is accurate. That unfortunately, what people don't know is we have a button we can push. So I'm not sure why they didn't press the quench button. I have no clue. That will come out in litigation as well. So we have a button that's covered over so you can't mistakenly hit it because it's called a quench. You can search YouTube and find out what an MRI quench is. And what we do is when there's a human attached to the scanner, we push that button and you call 911 immediately. That was not done for over an hour. There's no excuse for that. I do not understand why that quench button was not pressed. That is my biggest question. Yeah, because I don't know, can't say it would have saved his life, but it sure was a good chance. Is a good chance it could have. The thing that could have saved his life though was him not going in that room, not even being in that trailer. That is the one thing I would say for patients to not force the issue that your loved ones come back there with you. They can't be in there with you during the scan. They shouldn't be in there with you during the scan. There's nothing they can do for you in there with the scan. So I encourage patients to take, you know, just to not be patients, but be partners in their healthcare and to make sure that when, yeah, I'm reading the comments. There's only one comment. Did you have a comment? You're asking about your interest in radiology, but right now I got to finish this because the video is about MRI safety and the accident. So I'll get to the comments, but it's not about the actual topic that I'm on. So just give me a second to finish what I was talking about, the train of thought of what we were talking about. But you're welcome to ask the questions here. I will get to them, but I do want to make this video about what I said it was going to be about, which is MRI safety and accidents that happen because people unfortunately don't understand the seriousness of this. And unfortunately, someone lost their life. And it very much was unnecessary. And we could say it was the technologist's fault, it was the center's fault all day long, which I'm not saying it's not. But again, I can't say that video was authentic. But if patients understand, I get so much flack from patients. I mean, like, I get people that want to fight me because I asked them to take off their jewelry. You wouldn't believe the pushback that I get from patients being so upset because I won't let their family members come back there to the waiting room. And this is the reason why. And I need patients to understand that when you come for an MRI scan, leave anything you don't want to lock up at home, because the only way you should be getting an MRI scan is changing everything except maybe your underwear. And there are facilities now that make you even change out of your underwear because of metallic fibers. These things can burn you. This is very, very serious. MRI is not CAT scan. All imaging, everything in healthcare that you get is going to have a risk. Everything comes with a risk. But a big magnet, as you can see from this incident, is serious. I work at a few places and I work all around town. And one of the things that a lot more are cracking down on is people not following safety protocols. And they're going back and auditing what was not done. So I'm telling you, if you're a technologist out there, cross your T's, dot your I's. They can go back 10 years. If someone wants to go back 10 years and say this was not done and your name is signed on it, you can be held responsible. The facility, the radiologist, everyone can be held responsible. So it's important that we keep the patients safe, and not only patients, us as technologists. So let me get to this question. Um, you're interested in radiology technology, but I want to work in AI and medical imaging companies. Do you think this will help more, or computer science? That's a good question. There are people who work in informatics. I have a podcast on that. There are people who work in PACs that have no radiology background. But one thing that I'm noticing in the profession, with people that are in the profession, if you have a medical imaging background and you want to work in informatics or PACs, they are leaning more towards people not just with a computer science degree, because they don't need that. They need people who understand medical imaging. So if you come in with a computer science or a background like that, but you don't understand how imaging works, you can hinder the process. They're still got to bring somebody in who understands that middle process. So that's why I say, if you work in medical imaging, don't count yourself out with these informatics or these the computer parts of our job, because your imaging background will help you. You still need to get certain certifications. You need to get certain experience. Are there a lot more jobs out there that are patient direct than there are in informatics? Yes. But I will encourage you to, look into it. But to say you should have one degree or not, it just depends, because there are people out there who don't have any radiology background that work in informatics. So, okay, so I think that is all the questions. But yeah, if you have any more, but this was what I wanted this live to be about, was MRI safety and making sure not only technologists understand, but patients understand. Because I personally think if that video is authentic, that I don't understand why the tech couldn't help that lady up. Because as the husband was pulling her up, he was behind just with his hand, like supporting her back. There is no reason why we should invite family into that scan room. Anybody that's not a patient should not be in that scan room. They should not. Nobody comes in. When I work in a mobile, it's been years since I worked in one, but when I worked in a mobile, nobody came in that mobile but me and a technologist and a patient. That is it. Nobody else. So I was really shocked when I learned that it was a mobile unit and there was family members in the mobile unit. It's a tiny area anyway, so I just don't see how that many that you I'm just not going to have. I don't know. It's sad all the way around, but if you're a patient, please, please, please remember, this magnet is always on, and it is very serious. And stay safe. Change before you go into the room. Even if the technologist says you don't have to change, insist on changing. Take off all your jewelry. I don't care if it's your wedding ring and you say it's real. Who cares if it's real or fake? Take it off. I don't let people in with anything. I don't care if it's real or fake. If you're scared about somebody stealing it, leave it at home, because it's coming off if you go into my scanning room. So that is this episode of Live with a Couple of Rad Techs. Be sure to check out the podcast. There's also a book, Rachel the Radiographer, to introduce young people to radiology early on, because it is a wonderful profession. We do deal with a lot of different things. And if you haven't seen the recent commercials that we are doing with the ASRT on TV, check it out, asrt.org. You can check it out in my videos here. I was recently in one for MRI, so love for you guys to check that out. And until then, have a good one.